Hi everyone! So I have decided to film a series on what it was like to be a Walt Disney World cast member. Now, most of you may know if you've been on our channel for a little while now, because I talk about it quite a bit, that in 2010 I was lucky enough to go to Florida for 4 months and be a Disney cast member. So I kind of really want to do a series talking about how to apply if you're interested, all the experiences I had, what it was like working there, what it was like living there day to day, the pros and the cons, because it sounds like a magical place, but there are definitely some cons there, and just kind of maybe take some questions at the end and kind of really help anyone out, or just give you like a bit of information if you were interested. So to start with, and the part one I want to do is the applying, how you apply, how you get selected, how many people kind of apply. Now, it has been a while since I applied, obviously. We're now what year is this? 2016. So I went 6 years, oh my God, I went 6 years ago. God, that makes me feel really old. Anyway, so I'll start with how I actually found out that you could go and work in Florida. So I actually went to Florida in 2009 with my family, and I remember being in Mouse Gear in Epcot, and there was a girl there from Liverpool, and outright I was like, how are you here? Like, do you live in Florida? Are you a Florida resident? Or what is this about? And she was like, oh, actually I'm doing the international college program, which means I can come over here, work for a few months and then go back. And I was like, that sounds incredible. Where do I sign up? I need this. So there are two different types of programs. There is the international college program, which is what I did. Although they've changed the name of it now, it's now called, I did some research, the J1 Cultural Exchange Program Summer. That's the kind of one I did. I'm just gonna call it the International College Program because that's kind of what it was called when I did it, but just know that's the one I mean if you're looking now. And the other one was the Cultural Exchange, Cultural Representative, I think it was called, and that's what Crispy Small did. Basically, you go and you work in Epcot in the UK Pavilion, either in the food section or the merchandise. In my role, you could work anywhere. You could be in any park, in any role, which was brilliant. So when I came back from that trip, I actually started doing some research, finding out how you went about applying, what the criteria was, what kind of you expect. And the company that you actually apply for in the UK is a company called Yummy Jobs. They have a website which is really helpful. They've got, when I first did it, it was like Disney and like Camp America. Now I see you can do Universal Studios, the hotels, you can go on cruises. There's so many different options now, so it's really great, and the company themselves are amazing. They really help you from start to finish with your application, with the interview process, and any questions you have about getting there. So as I said, the program I did was about, I think you do a maximum of 4 months is what your visa allows you to. You usually have a few days at the end of the program, and I know quite a few people on my program went to like New York and other places in America for the last few days, then came back sort of via there. I just went straight to Florida and straight back. So with the application process, you literally fill out a form and send your CV off online on their website. If I remember correctly, I think it opens like July time for the following year. So, okay, right now we're in May 2016. You can't apply for summer 2016. You'll have to wait sort of June, July to apply for summer next year. And for the international college program, the clue's in the name a little bit, you have to be in university. You have to have already completed at least 1 year of university, I think, and you have to be coming back into the country to do a final year or 2 more years or another year of university, basically. I think that's just so they can confirm you'll come back into the country, or maybe it's a special visa. I'm not really sure of the logistics of it, but I knew at the time you had to be in university. Now I know the Cultural Representative program, you don't need to be in university. You can be kind of any age if you just want to go over there and that's a year, I believe, that program. So mine was kind of a little bit, just a summer period. I went from May to August or September, June, July, August, September. I think it was May till September. So it was basically based on when you finish college or university, what time you can kind of go. So the roles that you can apply for are operations, merchandise, quick service food and beverage, lifeguard and entertainment. The one I kind of really wanted was operations. You kind of get, I think you pick a top 3 when you apply about what order you would like to do them in. They're kind of the 3, like I would really like to do operations, but then number 2 would be like entertainment, and number 3 would be like food and beverage, and you kind of picked it in that order, and they kind of looked at it like that, I believe. Okay, so you've gone on in July on the website, you've sent off your application, what happens next? Well, again, I did some research and it's a little bit different now, but for me, I had 2 interview stages. The first interview was a phone interview with a representative from Yummy Jobs. That was fine. I remember sitting on the phone smiling because like I read somewhere that if you smile while talking to someone on the phone, you sound happier. Don't know, obviously worked because I kind of got a second interview. But kind of the questions you get asked are, how do you deal with the heat? Do you have a criminal record? I'm sure there were some questions about like about the job, but they're the ones I remember. I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm okay with the heat. I want to go to Florida. Like, it's really hot. Or do I have a criminal background check? No. No, I'm good. So I passed that one, and I remember waiting absolutely ages to hear back to see if I'd got a second interview for that one. And there was actually oh my goodness, I can't remember what it's called now. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'll find it and I'll put it in the notes at the bottom, like in the description bit at the bottom there's like a forum, a bit like what the Dib is for Disney fans. It was a forum for people that were applying for the International College Programme. And it was really good actually. You had people that had their phone interviews, how they thought it went, and then you had that bit where everyone's like, I've started to hear, or I've had a phone call back, and you're sitting there like, I haven't, I've obviously not done it, I'm not gonna get a job, my life is over. But luckily I got an email to say I got invited to the second interview stage, which I have to say, as interviews go, it was the most magical, slightly long-winded, but still magical interview I've ever had in my entire life. So your second interview, if you get to that stage, is in the Disney head office in the UK, which is in Hammersmith. That's great because it's actually like 30-40 minutes from my parents' house, so I was quite lucky I could just go home and then go from there. And I remember it being amazing. I think the second interview stage was around November, so we walked in to reception and they had a big Christmas tree made out of Disney like soft toys, and the stairs going upstairs had little Mickeys in them, and there was a gate that you had to walk through that had the castle on it. It was just amazing. And at the time they were promoting Alice in Wonderland, so they had these big floor to ceiling like posters of it, and it was so good. So you get there, I think about 9ish we all had to get there in sort of your smart clothing. And I actually specifically think that there was a criteria of what you could wear. Now, I'll get into this a little bit more when I talk about traditions, which is something you do when you're in Florida. But I think I had to say like your shoulders had to be covered. If you wore a skirt, it had to be below the knee. There was like closed-toed shoes. There was like quite a big list of things that you had to wear. And I can't remember if that was just for traditions, but I remember going into town and buying an outfit that kind of fit that description. So I had a pencil skirt on that went below the knee from Marks and Spencer's, and this like green, it was nice when it sounds like a green shiny top that I wore over it, and then these little like court shoes, and I thought it was the bee's knees. And I got really early, did all my hair and makeup, and it rained the whole way there and I got absolutely soaked, so I didn't look that great when I got there. But anyway, so you get there, there's hundreds of people there. If I remember correctly, there was a lot of us, maybe not 100, there was probably about 100 there, and we all had to sit in this big kind of theatre room, and they showed you this inspirational video about how great it is to work at Walt Disney World and that you'll love it and you really want to be there. And then there's people there and they're asking you questions, they're giving you prizes. It was amazing. And they're kind of telling you like, yeah, welcome, you're going to be part of, Walt Disney World, blah, 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 blah. Here's your interview. You're going to get given a time and then you have to come back. I was like, okay, that's fine. So this was probably about 10 a.m. and the time I was given was 4:30 in the afternoon. So I didn't know anyone else there. I kind of like, what do I do now? They're like, go somewhere else and come back at 4:30. I was like, brilliant. I've got no money because I didn't think to take like loads of money. I didn't think I'd spend the day like out and about in London. So there was obviously people that already knew each other because they all like joined up, and I'm kind of the awkward person that was at the side like, I don't know anyone, I'm really like quite antisocial when it comes to talking to people, so I was like, I'll just stay here while everyone's making friends and going off in their groups. There were some girls that they all like, let's all go to see Princess and the Frog, and they were like, yay, and then they left, and I was like, you have fun. I wasn't invited. No hard feelings. It's only been 6 years. Anyway, so I kind of wandered around Hammersmith. I went to Starbucks for like 3 hours. And in the end, I decided just to go back to the interview place. And I was like, can I just sit in here? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I ended up just sitting, watching everyone go in for their interviews. Actually, I think this really worked in my favour because I got to see kind of the dynamic of the interviewers and how people went in together and what they liked and what they didn't like. So I discovered pretty quickly that you went into an interview in a pair. And from this, from what I could see and kind of what I was hearing the people that worked at Yummy Jobs kind of mention, it's all about how you react or work with the other person you're with and how you kind of bounce off each other and involve everyone in a conversation that you're answering the questions. So I was like, right, okay. So I actually managed to meet the guy that I had an interview with who's called Matt, and actually I still have Matt on like Facebook now and everything. It was funny, we both got the job and I remember seeing him out there being like, you're my interview partner, and he was like, oh my god, yeah, we're here, and I was like, yeah. Anyway, I said to him basically, right, I think they're kind of judging on how well we work together, so like we need to be like laughing at each other's jokes, we need to be including each other in the conversation. He was like, yeah, I've got you, we'll do that. So I was like, right, I get up, the interview lady comes over, she calls my name, I go to shake her hand and she's like, oh, I'm really not very well, sorry, I'm not going to shake your hand. And I was like, oh god, and my confidence just went, like, I know it's something silly, but then I was like, oh god, like have I done a terrible first impression? She doesn't want to touch my hand, like, oh god, she hates me, I'm never going to get a job in Disney ever, blah, 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 blah. It was fine. So she asked us about our jobs, what we've done previously, what kind of roles we're looking to do, just getting a little bit of an idea of our personalities really. And then as soon as it's over, I mean, you're not in the room on your own. We're at a table with our interviewer, there was a table behind us, a reasonable distance, with another interviewer and another table with another interviewer, and they're all from Disney, like they're all American, they've come over to interview us, so they're part of the Walt Disney Company, so that's kind of who you have your interview with. And then when it's finished, they're like, thank you very much, we'll be in touch and we'll let you know. And then you go out and they kind of write everyone's name down and they're like, what location would you like to have on your badge when you get it? So I put High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire, because that's where I was from. I should have just put London because no one knew where that was anyway. So I left and that was it. I was waiting for ages and I think, oh god, when did I find out? I want to say it wasn't till January. It might have, I'm going to say January, I think. And I remember not having internet. I was in a student house and we didn't have internet for some reason. And I remember having to go to the university every single morning to go to the library to log on to see if I'd got an email. And was it January? I want to say it was January. That's what I'm going to go with. I may be mistaken and I'm sure I'll ask someone I worked with and they'll be able to help me out. But it was quite a wait and people were getting their, again on this forum I was on, people were getting their results, people were saying I didn't get it, I did get it. And I was like, oh, and also if you started earlier, you would kind of find out earlier, and they had this, there was a waiting list, so you could get put on the waiting list and if someone didn't go, you could take their place. And I read on the forum that some people were finding out like the day before they were leaving, like, you've got a place now, you're going tomorrow, and it's like, oh my god, okay, fair enough. So anyway, I got the email, I was accepted into the position I wanted, it was amazing, I was so excited, I think I almost cried. I remember ringing my dad, being like, I'm going to Disney World, oh my god. That was it, I was so excited. But that isn't where the planning kind of ends, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, the next step is you have to get a visa. And to get the visa, you have to go to the embassy in London, which is by Marble Arch. And you go in there, you have an appointment time, and I was in there for like 3-4 hours. It was long, and you basically wait. You go to see a person with your passport, and you know they ask you a few questions. Why are you coming to America? What's the purpose of your travel? What do you do in the UK at the moment? How long are you going to stay for? You know, almost like the customs questions. And then they take all 10 fingerprints off you. I was so scared about this beforehand because I'd read like horror stories of people having cuts on their fingers and them not accepting them. So actually for a week before I did this, I put plasters on all of, I must have looked ridiculous, like in Men in Black where they like get rid of their fingerprints. I must have looked like that just happened. Anyway, I put plasters on all 10 of my fingers so that I wouldn't get any cuts beforehand, so when I could go, all my fingers were fine, and they were, and that was good. So I did all 10 fingerprints, and she accepted my visa, and they take your passport off you, and this is so they can put your travel visa in there. And this costs money. In fact, to think that this is a cheap thing to do and you get a free trip to Disney World is not the case. There is a lot of cost involved with going. Obviously, to start with, you have to book your flights yourself. So there's that. In the peak of summer usually, so you're going at the start of the summer holidays, you're coming back at the end. Like, if you're lucky, you could get it kind of a good price, but most of us didn't. I mean, I booked my own flight. That I know Yummy Jobs did a flight where everyone could go on together, but I used my air miles with Virgin and managed to get a really good deal. But yeah, you have to pay for your flight, and actually there's a few other costs involved. So I'll quickly give you a rundown of just some of them that you have to cover before you go. Okay, so you have to do a criminal background check, which is £75 before you do anything else. You then have to do a Disney program assessment fee and pay your first 2 months rent, which is $354.50. Then you have to pay for your US Embassy fee, which is your appointment fee, which is $160. Now, if for some reason your visa doesn't get accepted straight away, you forget something, you miss your appointment, you have to pay $160 again. So that can be quite expensive. Then you have to pay a US CVIS fee, I think it's called, I might be butchering that, of $35. And then you have to get your passport couriered back to you from the embassy, which is another £30. And you also have to get medical insurance, which is around $70 a month. And then obviously you have to pay for your flights. And you also need some money for the first few weeks because you did get paid weekly, but like you needed to survive before that. So I think you'd have to kind of have $300-400. I mean, they recommended $350 to $750 to take with you in the first place. You're looking at you're looking at a trip to Florida now already. And I know obviously you're getting a lot more out of it, but it's still really expensive. And I don't think I really considered this that much before I sort of booked and got the position. But hell, I was going to Disneyland. I'll give you as much money as you need as long as I get to do this. They don't mention it as much on the website as they did, so I'm assuming it's still the same. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Now, quite a lot of you know already, if you've read, there's always posts about it online somewhere from some forum. There's quite a strict specification for a cast member on how they look, how they present themselves to work at Disney. Now, it makes sense, you know, you don't want to see someone with a mohawk working in Fantasyland, or someone, you know, with billions of piercings on Toy Story Midway Mania. I know most people don't think of that, but you know, when you work at Disney, you're a cast member, you're not a staff member, you are part of the cast. You need to, you know, give off this persona of a character. So you need to kind of fit the bill of that particular character. So the specifications that we had: no visible tattoos, a natural hair colour. So like what I've got now would be like a no-go. Obviously, you can dye your hair before your interview. That's not going to be the end of the world. I think facial piercings and tattoos were like the big ones for applying. Like, if you had those, it was a bit more of a grey area whether you get the job. I mean, there was a few people I worked with that did have tattoos on their arms and they just wore a long sleeve top. But oh my goodness, 40-degree heat, the last thing you want to be doing is wearing a long sleeve top. But I mean, I've only got a tattoo on my wrist, but at the time I didn't have it, so I was like fine. I think that's the kind of main things for applying. There's a few more rules when you actually start working there, which I'll go into when I talk about my job role a little bit more. Another thing that we had to do was you had to get a letter from your university to say that you'd be coming back. So I know it sounds weird, but you had to get your university to sign it to say that you planned to come back for another year and you intended to come back into the country. Because I suppose you are getting a working visa. The rules are a little bit different than just a normal visitor visa, so you kind of have to be a bit more careful. But yeah, I had to like prove that I was coming back and I wasn't going to run off to America and never come back, even though it was tempting at times. I did come back. I'm here. I'm in the UK. Don't worry, you don't have to chase me. I'm allowed back in America, please. Thank you. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to end episode 1. This is going to be such a long series if I continue to take this long to explain things. I just get too excited about stories and I have to tell everyone everything. So we'll get there eventually. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye!